Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So today we want to share with you our challenges, our story, how we're dealing with all these regulatory requirements, and how we make our compliance streamlined and compliant by design in our DNA. So let me first introduce myself. My name is Sholpan. I'm working in DeliveryHero 9 years, and here is my amazing colleague, my team member, Emmanuel. He's a driving compliance security topic, and of course, expertise in the NIS2, our new amazing law in Germany for Cybersicherheit. So here we would love just to talk about how we are trying to make our processes like one process aligned, take into account that how many markets we are operating. So today on our agenda, we're going to talk about that compliance is getting harder because every year we might have the new law because we are operating in 70+ segments in the countries with up to 10, 15 different brands. So, and of course, we're also talking about like how we try to make the security baseline like common for any different many regulations, including, for example, Korean, Latin America, European, MENA region. And also how we are scaling the compliance globally, because we don't have so much resources. That's why we need to make sure that within 3 people in my team doing compliance, we need to make sure that everything is working non-stop, like a Swiss watch. And of course, we're also talking about non-frictional compliance, because compliance is a very hard topic, and that's why we want to make it very, very smooth, painless, and frictionless. So here, just like in a nutshell, we are online food delivery company. So this is a brand that we are working under in the 70+ countries. We have up to 50,000 employees and worldwide. So that's why we are operating actually in most of the markets. We are #1, and that's why it means that we have so many countries, different languages, different regulations, different approach, different culture, and of course, how as a headquarter DeliveryHero based in Berlin, we're going to make everyone working in a harmony, in a unison. So of course, we are only talking about the main laws, regulations that you guys already aware. Here, I even didn't include the local regulations, for example, in Korea, South Korea, in Saudi Arabia, in UAE, but let's talk even about this for first 5 laws, DORA, because of financial institutions. We have also PCI, probably we all know about that, GDPR, new NIS2 in the European Union, and EU AI Act. So what does it mean for us? It means that we need to make sure that every single country is compliant, because what our management doesn't want to have any issues with reputation. And it means that it can create compliance fatigue because we can get different documentation, different evidences. Everyone is coming, all these inspectors, all these examinators, they are all asking the same questions, the same documents, and every single entity, every single team, local teams are asking us all over the world, like, can you please give us A, B, C, D? That's why for us it was very complicated to satisfy them all. Additionally, it was not very efficient for us to operate with all these different time zones, different cultures, different languages. And of course, it was still creating for us security gaps because we couldn't make sure that we can, fill all the gaps with all the controls implemented. That was, it was a problem for us to make sure how we can make sure that security team is really bringing the value. So here, I would love to pass my word to my colleague Emmanuel, where he can share his experience, how we are working as a compliance good.
Thank you very much, Sholpan. Hi, everyone. So Sholpan has told us we have operations in over 70 markets. We are based in Europe. You can imagine we have strong regulatory requirements, right? Especially in cybersecurity. I will walk you through what we did, how we harmonized security compliance, and also how we are able to scale across the locations where we have regulatory requirements. I will start with the first thing that we did, building security baselines. In the last slide, you saw in Europe where we have regulatory requirements. We have DORA, we have EU AI Act. I think yesterday there was a vote to actually slow down EU AI Act because, we all have these issues to streamline compliance process, to really make it efficient so that we can move faster in our organization. So what did we do? First of all, how we approach this is to analyze the regulatory requirements. Usually, these experts, these regulators who created these requirements, they look at basic things: identity and access management, incident response process, third-party risk management, and they sort of infuse all these things into legal requirements. What we did here is to take the support of our legal team and say, we have all these regulations. Can you analyze it for us and tell us in bits, what do we have to do from a security compliance perspective? Right. The outcome of that is to now have a single, more like you feed in a lot of requirements from a regulatory perspective, and then you break it down into what do we have to do from a security perspective. The technical requirements, the governance and administrative requirements, and what have you. Then, how does this really help us? After building the baselines, instead of us now facing the regulatory requirements one after the other, we now move to the baselines. So it means that we have a couple of security controls that we can really focus on, run away from different laws. Because we know that while we focus on the baselines that were created, we can implement controls that can fulfill the regulatory requirements itself. So this means that what our legal team have done is to actually look at the regulations. And the outcome are what we have here. NIS2, we have NIS2, we have GDPR, we have PCI, for instance. The outcome is that usually they are all, most often than not, talking about the same thing, right? When they say build access control, I'll give us some examples as we go further. But usually, the security controls that these regulators are asking, we can match them together. They are requesting for the same thing. And I'll go to the next slide to actually give us samples of what the outcome of our mapping is. Here, this is a sample of a mapping. All these regulators want us to have robust access management. I put it here how the laws state it. For GDPR asks us that the person that will have access to data of users must be authorized. Authorization means we must have proper access control policies in place and give them access. How does NIS2 put it? NIS2 said, have strict identity and access management policy. EUI has said something similar. PCI also said something similar. What was the outcome of this? How do we map this together and have one single control that can fulfill all these requirements? What we have to do is to just build access control using least privilege principles, like the basic access control requirements, technically. Once we develop this, we know that all these 4 requirements are fulfilled by just one technical control. I'll give you another example. This one is really funny. So, many of these regulations require us to have a strong incident detection and reporting process, right? And let's look at how these regulators put it. GDPR wants us to report within 72 hours if we have a data breach. And we have NIS2 coming out. NIS2 wants us to give the government early warning within 24 hours. EUI Act didn't specify a timeline, but they say we should report immediately. The other regulations also say it. I can imagine that if we extend this regulation to maybe mass TRM in Singapore, they also want us to report. But there's a clear matching scenario here. There's a way we can actually map this, right? Let's talk about the incidents reporting. If we just take 24 hours here from NIS2, it means that we will be fulfilling GDPR, which is 72 hours. it means that we will reasonably be fulfilling the EU AI Act requirement. So this is sort of like an exercise that we have to do as an outcome from all this regulation. And we can see similarities within these regulatory requirements. So instead of us having different teams, call a team GDP incident response team, call another team PCI team. We can find common baselines, bring all these things together in a single framework, and once we implement a control, we can fulfill all these regulatory requirements. So not to take so much time on these matching samples, I just wanted to share with you two scenarios where we usually see patterns in these security compliance requirements. However, there's still a problem, right, that we need to solve. So if you are working from Berlin office, you have different regulatory requirements that you're exposed to, and you have created a baseline. So you fulfill compliance requirements for your Berlin operation, let's say. But we now have operations in 72 countries. How do we go about it, right? So the challenges that we usually face, especially when we have operations in many places, are really decentralized operation. For us, the way our entity is set up is a bit complex because we have to think about the leadership of each region, each brand, from MENA, for instance, Europe, for instance. So our CEO our group CEO cannot say he's going to focus on MENA, for instance. So we needed to decentralize our operation. So you have like CEO for MENA region, you have a CEO for Asia region, which brings in complexity from a security compliance perspective, because these guys want to comply in their region, but from a group level, we also need to know what is actually going on in our countries, right? So that poses a challenge. We also have local regulations. A lot of different countries want to specify how they treat cybersecurity in their local authority. So that poses a challenge. Also, inconsistent reporting. We mentioned, I just showed you different requirements from different regulation. If we multiply that to different countries, then that's a big bit of a challenge. But how do we move forward from here after we created a baseline? Good. So what we have done here is to centralize our compliance monitoring. I explained about the case of different local regulation and different leadership. But what we have done here is to now find a way to organize POCs in each of our regions. POCs for compliance program, POCs for our information security organization. So we try to align together and form like a unified risk management process, right? So they can continue to do what they do in their region using the template of our security baseline process from HQ. They replicate it locally, and then they can report to us directly. So what we are then doing from a central perspective is to build real-time data points to fetch compliance report from these regions, right? So what we end up having is a big dashboard that shows security posture of our entire organization. So they transfer this baseline to their local operation, they implement the controls, roll out to their products, roll out to the engineering team, and then we from Central can have a single operating dashboard to see where we are as far as compliance is concerned. This helps us validate controls automatically. We are able to report real time to our management. So that's more like the approach that we use to centralize compliance. And what does this lead us to? We all know how audit fatigue is, how it is really difficult to have your auditors come to you, ask for a lot of documentations, and you have to run around with the teams to find this documentation, to implement these controls and all. But once we created a baseline that is operational within the organization, we realized that once auditors approach us and ask us for evidences for a particular control, we can just go to our central framework and say, okay, this engineering team already fulfills this, they fulfill that, and this, and we can just provide the evidences to the auditor. So this creating baseline for our central framework and having a consolidated, harmonized compliance process really helps us be proactive for audit process. And also, let's say the CTO wants to have report of our top 5 risks a day. It's easy for us with our harmonized process to go to the risk reporting dashboard and send to the CTO and say, this is where we are. So that helps us really see a security posture of where we are. That's how we have moved forward. And then what results do we get? I put this 100% hypothetically. We are all in compliance. So just to give us an idea how much this has really helped us. I mean, 5 frameworks. Looking at Europe market, we have 5 frameworks. We have a lot of controls, a lot of them. But after bringing this together, analyzing the technical requirements from the legal perspective, and then breaking them down to security controls, we are able to achieve reasonably a high level of compliance, proactive compliance process. And instead of our team chasing different legal requirements, we now focus on one single framework for our organization. We know that once we are able to implement what the framework requires us to implement, the regulations are automatically complied with. So just to round up, I want to give us a key takeaway from our presentation, right? Harmonizing security compliance process for us has helped us stop chasing regulation. Because regulations will always come. The regulators will always ask us to do something. But to stay ahead of it, we have to take it upon ourselves to analyze the regulation, find a baseline, implement them, and then we can build a global security posture. And using a centralized reporting helped us a lot to actually reduce friction in our organization. That's more like it. I think we can take questions, or you want to add something. But in a nutshell, that's our roadmap to get into where we are today. Thank you.